Hello everyone, this is Dr. Costa, and in this video I am going to talk about the preparation time needed to pass MRCP Part 1, Part 2 and PACES. I am going to talk from the perspective of a junior doctor who has just completed his or her MBBS degree and internship, and I'm also going to talk about from the perspective of someone who has a few years of clinical exposure. As many of you already know that I have passed MRCP last year and I take online courses for MRCP Part 1 and PACES. I do have some students there, so I have little experience to talk about this matter. So let's start with MRCP Part 1. If you are a junior doctor and if you have very little clinical exposure, then I would suggest you to take at least 6 months of preparation time. Well, many would argue that they would take 4 months of preparation time, but I would highly suggest to go for 6 months because you have to finish 2 question banks at least. That can be past test or past medicine, or can be past medicine or on exam. Basically you have to take 2 from big 3, past test, past medicine and on exam. Then you have to finish some of the important MRCP Part 1 books, and you also have to understand the examination structure, syllabus and question patterns, and it would take at least 6 months of time to complete everything efficiently and completely. But if you have a little clinical exposure, let's consider you have 2 to 3 years of clinical exposure, and by this time you have already completed some parts of your other post-graduation degrees in medicine, for example FCPS or MD, then you may finish preparation for MRCP Part 1 in 4 months of time. But still you would require those 4 months because the syllabus and questions that come in the MRCP Part 1 examination is not entirely similar to FCPS Part 1, MD or other postgraduate degree in the field of internal medicine. For MRCP Part 2, if you have very little clinical exposure, then I would suggest to take at least 8 months to 12 months of preparation time. Many new students fail to understand the exact differences between MRCP Part 1 and Part 2 because the syllabus for both exams overlaps quite a bit and the question patterns are also similar. Both examinations would give you multiple choice questions, but in reality there is a huge difference. MRCP Part 1 is looking for your clinical knowledge, but MRCP Part 2 is actually looking for your clinical maturity and the ability of decision making and also justification. That's why it takes a lot of time and maturity to pass MRCP Part 2 exam. If you want to learn more about the differences between MRCP Part 1 and Part 2, then I have an entire video on this topic in this channel. And I also talked about the study materials and question banks for MRCP Part 1, Part 2 and PACES in different videos in this channel. Be sure to watch these videos. Now let's consider you have a few years of clinical experience. In that case, you would still need at least 6 months of time to confidently prepare for MRCP Part 2 exam because MRCP Part 2 syllabus is vast and you still have to finish 2 of the question banks and multiple books. Besides this, you have to acquire the data interpretation and image interpretation skills. I mean, you need to learn how to interpret different ECGs, X-rays and other imaging tests like CT scans, MRI scans, etc. Now regarding MRCP PACES exam, if you are an international medical graduate and you do not have much clinical experience and you are also not extremely fluent in English, in that case I would suggest you to take at least 1 year preparation time for MRCP PACES because you will need that time to understand the PACES stations, examination structures and how the ethical scenarios and communications are practiced in NHS. It is an entirely different skill, so you need to have the understanding about the health system in the UK. So it would take at least 1 year of time to confidently prepare for MRCP PACES examination. If you are an experienced physician, then I would still suggest you to take at least 6 months of time for MRCP PACES preparation, because if you read MRCP PACES books, then you'd see that there are hundreds of scenarios that appear in different stations of PACES examination, and you have to make sure that you have practiced all scenarios. Sometimes all the cases may not be available in your health facility, so you have to allocate time to find out the important cases for PACES and also practice these cases with your friends or co-workers against a ticking clock. So in short, if you have very little clinical experience, then for part 1 you would need 6 months, for part 2 you would need at least 8 months, and for PACES you would need 1 year of time. So altogether it makes more than 2 years of time, but in reality it takes a bit longer for most of the candidates. In my opinion, I could be wrong, the average time taken to pass MRCP exam for international medical graduates is somewhat in between 3 years and 6 months to 4 years and 6 months. Now you can ask me, 3 to 4 years is a huge time, and why someone should take that much time? Because in reality, nobody starts studying for MRCP part 2 just after completing MRCP part 1 exam. Candidates usually wait for the results, and after getting their results, if they have passed, then they celebrate, take some break and start preparation for the next part. And sometimes different life circumstances may appear. For example, someone can get married and that may cause some study gaps. And finally, the pass rates are not very high. For international medical graduates, for MRCP part 1, the pass rate is around 55 to 60%. For part 2, pass rate is around 50%, and for PACES it's around 40%. And all the candidates who take these exams are super brilliant. They are as brilliant as you and me. So it is absolutely not unusual if someone fails once or twice. All these factors together makes the MRCP preparation time 3.5 years to 4.5 years for most of the candidates. And it is especially true for the international medical graduates, because they have two genuine barriers which an UK graduate does not have. The two barriers for IMGs are, number one, language barriers, because most of the IMGs would not have English as their first language, and number two, they don't know much about the health system in the UK. Lastly, I would like to tell you, if you are exceptionally talented, then you may be able to finish the entire MRCP within 2 to 2.5 years. Now I would end this video. If you have any questions or comments, then feel free to write me in the comment section, and also check the description box of this video to find some important links about MRCP preparation. Thanks for watching this video. Stay healthy and happy.